So let's talk about King James, the first sons, because that's where everything really went haywire. So King James the first, who was the first king of England, and he was the sixth king of Scotland. He is known for many things. I mean, he's a famous king. And he's often raked over the coals, and because he's a flawed person like anybody, but he truly was. He was a king trying to do God's will, and yet he was a king at a time when things were totally insane, because of the Popery, the Vatican. Because see, first of all, don't claim Christian when the Vatican had executed two people that were attempting to put the Bible, what they had, in English. So by the time everybody in England got a hold of these English versions, they were like, what are you doing, Popery? Yeah. Because it said one thing in what they were reading, but yet everything that was being taught in the church in Latin that they couldn't understand, but they had nothing to go by until it was in English, was different. Which is also why King James the First, he didn't write his own Bible. He was getting rid of the propaganda that the Popery put in. And in order to do that, he had to get the experts in the Latin area and the Hebrew and it was the most, rounded people to put everything that was legit and wasn't propaganda in. Which is why, even though it was King James okayed for the Mayflower to come here, okay? But his issue, again, so he was trying to keep order, which is part of a king's responsibility, but he did not agree with the Geneva Bible because it still had some of that propaganda in there, such as all kings are tyrants. That's not true. It's not true. It's not true, because King David, God loved King David. So some of the Bibles were making it out like every king is a tyrant, and so that's what he didn't like about the Geneva Bible. But he also was not happy with the Popery. Not at all. In fact, he was trying to protect the line, the kingdom, the king line from Catholicism getting in, because that's what Catholicism was trying to do. That's what the Vatican was trying to do. The Vatican has always been about it. The Vatican is just an extension of the Roman Empire, which is why Jesus said, you will know them by their deeds. You look at their deeds, and their deeds is a historical child molestation problem. Look at their deeds. If you go visit the Vatican, they have idols up everywhere. Just go look. You don't even have to visit there. Go online. It's like, how do Christians go and visit here and actually think at the end of the day that they're still Christian when it's nothing but idols everywhere? And that's just to name a couple of things. So their deeds show you. Jesus said you will know them by their deeds. I mean, maybe Catholics say, no, we're separate from that. My Catholic Church is different, okay? But they hand down all the same doctrine. So I don't think you could separate yourself, but maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. And again, I was born and raised Catholic. I'm just saying there's always been something wrong with it. So King James the First, when he enacted the divine right of kings, which pissed a whole bunch of people off, which meant he could overrule Parliament. But understand it if you're somebody that truly believes in God, okay? It was actually more of a risk for him to do that. Now, if you're somebody that's from the Popery, then you would love having that role of divine right of kings, right? Because you don't really believe in God, you're just claiming it. And so you're a liar anyway. But for King James, he truly believed in God. And that's what he was trying to let lead him, which is why God protected him from the gunpowder plot, yeah, when the Vatican tried to blow him up in Parliament. He got wind of it, yeah, which is the November, the 5th of November, which is when our elections are. What do you know? So everything in the West, when it comes to the Constitution, has been written based off of this Bible. Atheists hate it. A ton of all communists hate it. They all hate that. Why? Because they hate God. Okay? But that is really where most of our laws and everything was derived from, was from the Bible. Okay? So when King James the First, 2 sons went on. One of them, King James the Second, and King Charles, were both his sons. They were secretly Catholic. That's what, and they were the two that put the African slave trade together. That's why I said King James II was the tyrant. He ended up being executed. See, the Protestants, they were not having the popery stuff. They were not having it. And can you blame them? The Vatican didn't even want them to have the Bible in English. So, and they executed 2 people who were putting it in English. So King James the First, what he kept that Vatican way at bay, which is why they wanted to have him blown up in Parliament too. But God will protect the kings that follow him. So even though King James II was very strict about, none of this Catholic stuff, we cannot let the popery into the kingships, because that was what was happening, all this influence. So that's the reason they secretly were Catholics. Well, see, God wouldn't recognize that. I don't think so, not at a king level. Because if you know anything about, God does appoint the kings. He appoints the leaders. It's just the way it is. This world doesn't have to believe it. It doesn't have to like it, but that's the way it is. Everybody at some point that's alive and dead will find out that that's true, okay? That is the way it still works. Again, the communists, they hate it. I think most of them know it's true. They just are hoping to buy enough time and to, completely get as many people following the wrong road as they can. So, this is the reason why the protests, in the past few months, No Kings protest. Have you ever heard of that protest? No, you haven't. Not until these protests were formed. Why did they name it that? Because Donald Trump is related to Mary Queen of Scots, and Mary Queen of Scots was the mother of King James I. You see how that works? But Donald Trump he's never been raised. He's royalty in Scandinavia and Norway and Denmark and all over the West. He has royalty lines, even in England. However, he was raised here with America's values. He's not looking to be a king. I'm sure he's very aware of his lineage and his royalty. And I'm sure that's why he was protected when they tried to shoot him. I have no doubt that's why. Because God will protect those that are following his will. He will. He will. But you can't come in and claim you're Christian and then just do your own will. If you can, follow that. So that's where things really went to shit, is because the Protestants fought back. And then there was what was called the Glorious Revolution in 1688. And it was no bloodshed, but it lasted for a year. And it was the Protestants saying, there's no way we're going to have a continuous line of Catholic kings. And they were right. They were right. And so they had this revolution, and so it was able to get the Catholic out of the royalty line. Not completely. Because look at King, the current King Charles and his line, they're all Catholic. But see, that's what it all goes back to the Bible. At the end of the day, it always does. Every war does, every fight does, every battle. God knows how to keep making himself known and keep making himself relevant.